My friends, we are here now. It's the period before Tisha Bav, and most of you will probably be seeing this on Tisha Bav, the saddest day of the year on the Jewish calendar. The day we mourn the Batei Mikdash in Yerushalaim, the first and second Beis HaMikdash, the destruction of both Batei Mikdash. We saw the Mishnah in Tainus. We also mourn the destruction of Beitar. I'm standing here with you outside the walls of the old city. But tomorrow I'll be traveling, and hopefully you'll be coming with me, virtually at least, to the site of ancient Beitar. Today, probably many of you are familiar with the modern religious city of Beitar Illit. Beitar Illit sits just across the road from a small Arab village called Batir. At the edge of this Arab village is an old ruin, an old hill, the top of a hill. It's known as Chil Bet Al Yahud, the ruins of the Jews. That's identified as the Beitar, talked about in this Mishnah, that we mourn on Tisha B'Av. Nechreva Beitar, Beitar is destroyed. I've never been there before. It's not the safest of all areas. It's near a small Palestinian village. It's not easy to access. But tomorrow morning, I plan on going with a few friends of mine, and hopefully you guys will be joining with me virtually. But before we get there, I want to give us a small introduction. The Bar Kokhba rebellion takes place about 60 years. Most historians give it as the year 132 if the Churban of the second Beis HaMikdash is in year 70. The Bar Kokhba rebellion is near 132, almost 1900 years ago. And the Bar Kokhba rebellion takes place based out of its capital, Kanarel Lefi the Gemara. And the Gemara in Tainus mentions it, Yerushalmi in Tainus, as well as a little bit the Bavli and the Bavli and Gittin in the Agadat of the Churban. There's a fellow Shimon Bar Kokhba, who today we know from archaeological finds and the coins and the letters we find throughout caves, throughout Midbar Yehuda and other places in the desert and other places in Israel. His name was Shimon ben Kozba. At least in the beginning, he's supported by many Chachamim in Israel. Probably most of Chazal, most of the Tanoim led by Rabbi Akiva support him. And he launches guerrilla warfare against the Romans. The Roman Caesar at that time, Hadrian, passes the decrees we call Shmad. He forbids Bris Milah. He arrives in Yerushalaim, the very Yerushalaim we're standing by right now, and wants to rename Yerushalaim, and wants to redeclare Yerushalaim a pagan city, completely devoid of its connection to Hashem Elokai Yisrael. And Chazal and Shimon ben Kozba have had enough, and they launch a rebellion against the Roman Empire. And they understand that they cannot attack the Roman Empire head-on in the open field. And they use caves, and they use underground hideouts. And there was caves situated in the desert, caves situated under homes in the Shvelat Yehuda, which today we can visit. And when everyone comes back to Eretz Yisrael, we can visit together. And using these underground caves and subterranean tunnels, they attacked the Roman army. And they probably managed to keep the Roman army at bay for some 3-4 years. Eventually, the Roman army puts down the Bar Kokhba rebellion terribly. Diocassus, one of the Roman historians that mentions this slightly, talks about hundreds of thousands of Yidden and hundreds of villages being destroyed. Chazal talk about blood coming up to the noses of the horses. Chazal talk about huge fields being fertilized from the blood of the Yidden that were killed near Beitar. Either way, this is what's known as the Bar Kokhba rebellion, about the year 132 to 135. Do they take back Yerushalaim? One of the major questions that many historians and researchers and archaeologists deal with. Does the Bar Kokhba rebellion, does he manage to apply Jewish sovereignty to Yerushalayim as well, or just to the surrounding areas? What was the extent? Today we know that the extent was quite vast. From the Shomron and Binyamin in the north, we have found remains of Bar Kokhba coins that he mints as part of his new empire. Mentioned in Hilchos Meiser Sheni, these coins are mentioned. All the way down south to Hebron and further south, east to Midbar Yehuda, the Judean desert, west to the lowlands around there, Beit Shemesh, the Shvelat Yehuda, Beit Kuvrin, in that area. He manages to keep the Roman army at bay Seemingly he destroys the entire 22nd Legion. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, he wasn't successful. Yerushalaim is totally destroyed. The Arab Yehuda is totally destroyed. All of Am Yisrael is kicked out of these areas. Thousands are killed. This is one of the things we mourn. On Tisha Bav, Nechrava Beitar, Beitar was destroyed. As I mentioned earlier, tomorrow I'll be going there. Come with me tomorrow as we go explore this ancient site of Khirbet al Yahud, the ancient city of Beitar, a site almost never visited today. But we will get some footage from that site tomorrow. Okay, good morning, everyone. We are continuing our search to identify the places and to properly understand the Mishnah here in the end of Ta'anis. The Mishnah tells us, on Tisha Bav, Nigzar al Aviseinu shelo yikansu la'aretz. There was a gzeir against our forefathers not to come to Eretz Yisrael during the time of the Meraglim. V'chorev habayis harishoinu v'ashniya, and the first and second Beis Hamikdash were destroyed. V'nilkeda Beitar, and the city of Beitar was destroyed. Today, as you can see, I have a little bit of different clothing on. We're searching and looking today for that city of Beitar. What remains from Beitar? Where is Beitar? What is Beitar? What does the Mishnah mean when it says V'nilkeda Beitar, that Beitar was destroyed? I'm standing here at the edges of the Jerusalem Zoo, and behind me is Nachal Rephaim, the Rephaim stream. I'm sure you can see it nicely. The Rephaim stream continues westward, out towards the coastal plain. We're about 5-10 miles away from the old city of Yerushalaim. But on the southern banks, above the Rephaim stream, sits a small Arab village called Beitar. Beitar preserves the original name of Beitar. And next to Beitar, it has been said that there's still the ruins of the Jewish village of Beitar that was destroyed on Tisha B'Av in the year 135. Today, because it's not the most friendly area, we're going to go a little bit disguised. I got together with a group of my friends. We're going to try to make the hike, about a half-hour hike from this area, hiking up to see what still remains from the village of Beitar, what remains from the times of Bar Kokhba. What can we see and learn and experience from the site of Beitar? Come with me as we go explore that. We are climbing up the hill where the fortress of Beitar is. You can see my friend Yoni slowly climbing up. You can see how, for the first time in my life, I begin to understand why Shimon Bar Kokhba uses this as his fortress. A steep mountain to get all the way to the top where those olive trees are. That's where the fortress of Beitar was built and destroyed 1,885 years ago on Tisha B'Av. We are heading there right now. Let's hope we keep safe. Let's see what there is there. First time for me as well. It wasn't easy. I don't even know how safe it is. Unfortunately, near a village of an Arab village, a Palestinian village of Beitar. As you can see, I disguised myself slightly. I don't know if they think now I'm an Arab or a tourist. I don't know. But I figured it's a little bit of a shtadlus. Don't worry, we're armed as well, and we have a small group. Hopefully we'll be okay. One thing that always bothered me is why Beitar? What was so unique about Beitar? What was so unique about Beitar? Why does that become Nechrava Beitar? Beitar was destroyed. Why does Bar Kokhba set up his base, his capital, here in Beitar? Guys, today I have the answer. I'm sitting here at the peak of the mountain. Behind me, I'm pretty sure these are the ruins of the fortress on the peak of Beitar. It's not an easy climb up. There's natural fortifications over, I think, 100, 200 meters above the Rephaim Valley, steep valleys on all sides. It was not easy for us to climb up. We are, I would say, maybe fairly experienced hikers. The Roman army could not have come up and breached these fortifications. Walking around Beitar, I find a handle. I'm not an expert archaeologist, but I think I've seen enough. I found this piece of a pot. I'm pretty sure this is what we call Roman period. This very handle, made out of pottery, may have been held by Shimon Bar Kochba, may have been held by Rebbe Lezer HaModai, may have been used maybe as a kois, Birkas Hamazon. The last time someone made Birkas Hamazon here, only 3 brachas were made. Birkas Hazon, Birkas Halaretz, and Uvnei Yerushalaim. And they're hoping to get to Yerushalaim. After the Churban Beitar, and shortly after, when we were given the Kvura, when we were able to come back and buried those who were killed in Beitar, Chazal were misakin the bracha v'atoiv v'ameitiv. Hatoiv, that the bodies didn't rot. V'ameitiv, that the bodies were brought to Kvura. Baruch Hashem, today we're zocheh to come back to Beitar, something very, very moving for me. My Tisha Bav is going to be very different, and I hope your Tisha Bav as well will feel a little bit different, at least joining me virtually here on the ruins of Beitar. Chata Tova Meitiv B'chuvat Beitar.
רנו לישראל המלך הטוב והמיטיב לכל שפוים ויבוא איטיב ומיטיב וייטיב לנו גמלנו גבני יגמלנו לעד חיינו לחסד ורחמים ורווח הצל והצלח וברוך וישוע מלחם הפנוס ולכל המרחמים וחיים שלום וכל טוב ומכל טוב עליך אסרנו.
Amen. Guys, you heard it here. Perhaps the first time in almost 2,000 years since Der Mesakim Birkat Tova Meitiv was said here in the ruins of Beitar. Rish Chodesh Av Tafshin Pei. I'm standing here amongst the ruins of Beitar. These stones, these walls, this is where Shimon Bar Kochba stood and fought against the Romans. As I stand here, I try to imagine what Rosh Chodesh Av must have looked like 1,885 years ago. The Romans were already at their doorstep. The Romans could not have come up the way I came up. The Romans would have come from the south. We find remains of Roman camps. We find a very fortified city that sits on top of a mountain. In the distance, I'm sure you can see the modern towers of the western neighborhoods of modern Yerushalaim. Did Shimon Bar Kochba know that final Rosh Chodesh Av, what was going to take place here in 9 days? More importantly, did he know that almost 1900 years later, a Jew would come back to that very site, wearing tzitzit, coming from davening Shachris at the Kotel HaMaravi in Yerushalayim, at the foot of the Har HaBayit by the Beit HaMikdash? Did Bar Kochba know that? He probably knew he would fall, but did he know that one day we would come back here? Personally, this is my first time being here, and standing here, just imagining what took place here. And as a Yid that continues the Messiah of Am Yisrael, just standing here, standing at this awesome place, Beitar, so much of our Torah was influenced. Rabbi Akiva, the Mishnayos, but Rebbe's father, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, was born right here. The Yerushalmi in Tainus tells us, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel tells us, I am the only one who's left. We went to Beitar earlier. We saw the ruins of the town of Beitar from the time of Bar Kochba, and the times of Rabbi Akiva. And while I was in Beitar, I turned to my friend Rav Pinchas Abramowitz, and I asked him, I said, Rav Pinchas, don't you think we have to rip our garments? Don't you think we have to rip Kriya? The halach is when you see one of the cities of Yehuda in ruins, we have to rip Kriya. It's a sign of mourning. It's brought down in the halachas of Tisha Bav. And Rav Pinchas looked at me and he said, no, I don't think so. Beitar today is rebuilt. And he said so truthfully and so sincerely. He said, yes, we're on the edges of an Arab village called Beitar. But Beitar has several thousand people. Right over the hill, Beitar was rebuilt. Doesn't have to be on the exact place. And indeed, behind me, down here in the valley, we can see the modern city of Beitar, Beitar Elite, a city of Torah, a city of Chesed, a city of Chasidus, a city of about 50,000 people. It's known in the world, it's known in Israel as the city of children. Most of the population in the city of Beitar are children. It's a city where, from what I was able to gather, doing some research, probably some 20,000 kids going to yeshivas, chadorim, Beis Yaakovs. And I was thinking back to the village of Beitar that was destroyed. And Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel tells us, I'm left over from all the kids of Beitar. And the Gerson Yerushalmi in Tainus, as he says, I had 500 kids who were learning with me in my cheder, and there were 500 chedarim. The Gerson, the Bavli is 400. But either way, perhaps these numbers are slightly exaggerated, and it's the Gemara's way of saying how many kids and how much Torah there was. I don't know if modern Beitar has reached those numbers yet, but it's definitely on the way. And Rav Pinchas was right when he told me this. You don't have to rip Kriya there. Beitar is rebuilt. With the rest of Eretz Yisrael, Yidden are coming back. It's being rebuilt. Torah is being learned here. And indeed, on one hand, of course, this Tisha Bav, we have to sit and mourn the terrible destruction of the Beis Hamikdash and the Churban Beitar. But on the other hand, we already, in our door, we can see a little bit in Nechama, as Baruch Hashem, Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Yehuda, Yerushalaim, are slowly being built up in front of our eyes. Thank you. We are here now on our journey of understanding the Mishnah in Tainus in the fourth parak. We understood what it means. The first Beis Hamikdash is destroyed. The second Beis Hamikdash is destroyed. Yerushalaim is destroyed. Beitar is destroyed. I took everyone to Beitar to see the site of Beitar. The last episode that the Mishnah lists that takes place on Tisha B'Av, the Mishnah tells us, V'nechra sha'ir, the city was plowed over. What does it mean, V'nechra sha'ir? What is this referring to? The Gemara proceeds to tell us a story about that takes place with Rabban Gamliel and Turnus Rufus during the time of V'nechra sha'ir, according to the proper girsa, the correct girsa there. And the Gemara explains that Rabban Gamliel escapes from being killed during the time of V'nechra sha'ir, and he escapes out to a cave, seemingly part of one of the caves that those fighting the Bar Kokhba rebellion run away to. Either way, it's clear that this is the last line in the Mishnah. This is definitely connected with the Bar Kokhba revolt. It's connected with the revolt that takes place some 60, 65 years after the Churban Abayis, where Bar Kokhba and Rabbi Akiva rebel against the Romans. And at that point, seemingly after the rebellion is put down, V'nechra sha'ir, the city is plowed over. The city of Yerushalaim is plowed over. It's probably referring to the Roman practice of when they would declare cities to be polises, to be pagan cities, to be Roman pagan cities. A pair of oxen would walk around the city walls to sort of sanctify the city in a way, to sort of declare the city as being a Roman city, a Roman polis, and the Romans stop calling the city Yerushalayim and they begin to call it Ilia Capitolina, a Roman pagan city. The gate behind me, which is below the current northern gate of the old city, known as Shar Shechem, the gate you're looking at down there was built by Hadrian. The archaeologists have dated it, and you've seen the big old stones next to it that resemble the stones used during the time of Hadrian and perhaps even during Bayesheni. This area was rebuilt as a Roman city. The gate, this northern gate, was placed here by Hadrian. This is part of Ilia Capitolina, part of that V'nechra sha'ir. The city of Yerushalayim was declared no longer the holy city of Yerushalaim, the city where we come to worship Hashem Elokei Yisrael. Not only was the Beis Hamikdash destroyed some 60 years before, 65 years before, Jews are now not even allowed to live in Yerushalayim. All the seemingly a Roman temple is built on the site of the Beis Hamikdash. Yerushalayim has become a total Roman pagan polis and is no longer the Yer HaKodesh for Am Yisrael. This is what the Mishnah means when it says V'necher Sha'ir, and this we can see with this gate built by Hadrian. This gate was not built to allow our forefathers to be Eile Regel. It was not built like the modern Shar Shechem is used for thousands of Yidden every day, certainly over Shabbos, to come to the Koisel Maravi and daven to Hashem. It was a gate built for Romans as a Roman pagan city, as a Roman polis. This was, in some ways, the final, the Makabah Patish, that final blow, V'necher Sha'ir, that took place on Tisha Bav, and this we also mourn on Tisha Bav. Obviously today, Baruch Hashem, Hadrian's Gate is no longer in use. It was discovered by the archaeologists way below. It's out of use. It's just an archaeological site, just an historic site. Hadrian's Yerushalayim doesn't exist. No one calls Yerushalayim today Ilya Kavatelina. Everyone refers to Yerushalayim as Yerushalayim. And Baruch Hashem are Zeicha to live in these times where Yerushalayim is beginning to be rebuilt, or Am Yisrael is coming back to Yerushalayim. May we Zeicha to see Yerushalayim fully rebuilt. B'mheira v'yameinu, Amen.